So it's 12:03. So nice to see everybody. Welcome. Out of respect to all of our times, we're going to dive right into this and get started. We have a lot to cover in a short amount of time, and really, like it's really great to see all of the squares light up here. So welcome to this open house, and I wanted to take an opportunity just to introduce myself. I know almost everyone on the call here, but there's a couple of new faces. My name is Carly Goodman. I am a member of the Federation CGA team, and I work as our Senior Manager of Community Belonging and Disability Inclusion, and have for several years in our community. I act as a convener, as a connector. I work to ensure that inclusion and belonging is a muscle used by many in our community instead of few. And I get to support so many different projects and initiatives to make sure that there are opportunities for folks of all abilities and backgrounds to access and participate in Montreal Jewish life, whatever that means to them and in ways most meaningful to them. We wanted to, before jumping into our agenda today, which you can see on my slide, just a show of hands, thumbs up if everyone can see my slide deck here. Good, thank you. Perfect. Before I say anything more, I wanted to take an opportunity to introduce my co-facilitator and somebody who I couldn't wait 15 minutes to give a formal introduction. It's really with pleasure to introduce Rabbi Julie Appel as my partner in crime today for the next 55 minutes while we're together. I really feel so grateful in the past few weeks alone that we've been working together and partnering together to support this very special initiative. I've learned so much from her. She is a wealth of knowledge, and in about 15 minutes, we're going to switch gears and you're going to hear more about design thinking, more about Spark Montreal, which is the reason why we convened this session today. Rabbi Appel is a champion for so many in the interfaith community, and she really gets it. To quote one of my colleagues, Rabbi Appel, you're a rock star. We are so lucky to work with you, to learn from you, and thank you for partnering with our community. So thank you very much for being here with us. A couple of housekeeping items. We all know the drill. We've been on Zoom for almost 2 years at this point, but I will say the following. There may be questions. That's okay. Use the chat box. We may address your question in the next 45 minutes. We promise we'll get to it. If we don't, drop it in the chat box. Lindsay is acting as our eyes and ears from our team. And we will address all questions at the end. This session is being recorded. There's many folks that weren't able to attend today in person in the Hollywood Squares, and so this conversation and session will be recorded so we can send out. Don't worry about taking any notes. You will be getting an email with all the information that you need in a follow-up. So I will ask on behalf of our team to use this opportunity to be present, to act as a sponge, to take in what you can. Don't worry about writing things down. We got you covered in an email, okay? That's really what I have to say. And in terms of the agenda, I'm gonna start us off. I guess jumping off of Simon Sinek's start with the why. Why are we here? Why are we talking about what we're talking about? I'm gonna go through the Rosoff study and share what we learned to help ground ultimately where we are today and where we want to go to moving forward. Rabbi Appel is going to lead out on design thinking and why it works, and you will walk away having hopefully all of your questions answered in terms of what is the Spark Montreal Fellowship, what's the application, everything you need to know, and we're going to create a space to talk together as a team and as a group. So far, so good? Yes, okay, wonderful. So I wanted to firstly just to frame the Rosoff study. Some of you on this call with us might have actually participated in either the focus groups or in the survey. And for others, I recognize, and we recognize, that this might be the first time that you're hearing about a study that helped to inform our understanding of different behaviors, needs, and interests of Montreal's interfaith community. So going back in time, a couple of months ago, we worked very closely with the Rozoff Consulting Group to better understand the needs and interests of interfaith families. They came back to us in February of 2021 with a study that specifically was an interfaith supplement and component of a much larger community study here in Montreal, I believe with over like 2,400 responses. This study, specific to interfaith members of our community, is the largest and most significant look at this particular segment in the Montreal Jewish community to date, involving over 230 members of interfaith families and voices represented both in the survey and in the focus group. So some of the key questions that help to animate this particular component of the study, you can see here on the slide. What are the primary interests, needs, and concerns among interfaith families? How do these couples experience or perceive programs, activities, institutions of the Montreal Jewish community? And what might be some opportunities for better engaging interfaith families were some of the questions that we set out to answer. The study, the Rozoff study in a nutshell, which you will be getting following this session, the complete full 28-page report, it comprised of a survey involving 197 respondents, as well as a series of interviews and focus groups with 37 participants, members of the interfaith community, and of course, 9 interviews with community professionals. And some of you on this call, I know, actually lent your voice and feedback towards this, this interview process. In a nutshell, mixed methodology, and hold on a second here. Before diving into some of the results and what we heard, this really involved families and members from across the board, scattered geographically across our community. Most were English native speakers. About 52% were representative of families who have children. The sample was mostly millennials between the ages of 20 to 40, and most respondents identified as the Jewish partner in the couple, just to frame some of the high-level demographics. What I wanted to share with you all today is just some high-level overview key points from the study with the limited time that I had to share this out. What did we learn about what people want or want more of? What we heard was that folks were extremely interested in Jewish museums, social activities that explicitly accept partners and friends who are not Jewish, Jewish holiday celebrations, and art or museum exhibits were some of the key ones that came out. In the left-hand side on this slide, you'll see a couple of numbers. This actually represents mean scores out of 5, with cultural actually coming up as the highest. It received a score of 3.3 out of 5, which just was the average mean of many different activities that stood out. What we hear and saw from these findings is that cultural really stood out, and that was a theme throughout other findings as well. For interfaith couples, so these are folks without young children at home, what really stood out here that we learned is that interfaith couples are interested in social activities that accept them as they are. Social justice activism and environmental issues also came up, traveling to Israel, and Jewish holiday celebrations. This slide just fleshes out some of the things that I already mentioned in terms of areas of high interest among interfaith members, generally speaking. You can see here it's color-coded by thematic area. And again, art or museum exhibits, Jewish museums, social activities, Jewish holiday celebrations really stood out. In terms of some key takeaways involving families with children, What we learned is that interfaith families express a high interest in low barrier cultural activities. Celebrating Jewish holidays is important. This was actually echoed in recent research that got published in May of this past year from Pew, that I believe the statistic there was 61% of that interfaith married couples share 61% of interfaith married couples who share Jewish culture or holidays with non-Jewish friends. Pew echoing what we learned and discovered here, that holidays certainly can be a focus to bring folks in. There's some other statistics that you can read on this slide as well, but the key one that really stood out was that celebrating Jewish holidays is very, very important, hence the 70%. In terms of challenges to address, I'm going to let these numbers actually speak for themselves. When we asked in your experience, how open and welcoming are Montreal Jewish organizations of the following, you can see really what landed here, and this was in comparison to folks from the broader survey, and the term used there to capture was in married, some members who don't represent the interfaith community. One of the quotes that really stood out for me in reading the report is the first one that you see here. We don't actively look to be accepted where we know we probably wouldn't be. And this captures a lived experience of so many on the ground in the community. Again, more perspectives of interfaith community members. What stood out here is that almost half, when you look at the numbers, almost half agreed that developing a community of friends or acquaintances with other families is so important, and agreed, almost 50% agreed that the community does not offer enough interesting activities or opportunities for members of the interfaith community. Lastly, continuing some of the trends and data that we heard in terms of the perspective of interfaith members, full acceptance of their children who have a parent who is not Jewish, 55% saying is critically important. And when participating in Jewish programs or events, when we asked that question, this is ultimately what came up. We heard loud and clear from the 9 community professionals that were consulted as part of this exercise that technical support needs are an area that more can be done in terms of providing resources, networking, creating spaces to learn inclusive language, both with direct members and those in peripheral, ensuring that the language that we're using lands with everybody who's in the space. We also heard that systemic support, ensuring that there's an ecosystem that supports one another and facilitates collaboration around referrals, is supported in the months ahead. So when all was said and done, the key takeaways from this study, and I'll sort of let this speak for itself, but really echoing that 50% of folks want more opportunities to connect with others and feel that the community just doesn't offer enough opportunities. Folks across the board want to be engaged with the community. Culture is king for everybody, and even more so for members of the interfaith community. And that acceptance of children and the non-Jewish partner was really a top concern. Some general trends looking at the Rozoff study, as well as other research that has come out in recent years, from the Pew study in May 2020 to the survey of Jews in Canada that was released in 2020. What we know are these following trends: that perceptions of interfaith families are changing, and folks are increasingly raising their children Jewish. Across the board, no matter whatever way you look at it, interfaith families do not feel that they belong. And that it is absolutely critical that this is part of the culture, not as an add-on. We are not talking about a monolithic group or a one-size-fits-all, and that low barrier entry points in the community truly are key. There is no report or research that's a crystal ball into the future, but it simply tells us the trends and dovetailing with other research collected, what this means for us here as a Montreal community. Going beyond the numbers, and I think just in closing off here, I really wanted to help us frame that we're not just talking about statistics, we're talking about human beings in our community, we're talking about our family, we're talking about our friends, our neighbors, who just want to belong and to be part of this rich, vibrant, diverse community where we have so much to offer. And yet historically, we have heard and we know that this group has been othered. And there are so many stories of barriers to accessing and connecting with Montreal Jewish life. In fall 2021, about a month ago, the Passport to Jewish Life funders came together and a commitment was made to aspire to support an ecosystem that recognizes and values the unique contributions of interfaith members for today and future generations to come, and investments to help lift up our community, to help lift up our ecosystem, and to help us do. My last slide, and I'm going to pass the floor to Rabbi Appel shortly to help bring back to Spark Montreal, and ultimately to help share, given what we've learned, where we want to go. I have been part of the social justice community and ecosystem now for almost 4 years, and certainly being in this space, we recognize that it's so much greater than ourselves. We are part of a movement. We are part of something so much bigger. And ultimately, when we lead out on this and talking about the unique lived experiences of so many in the community, it is absolutely critical to involve those for whom this work is for. Hence the mantra, nothing about us without us, that's often used in the social justice space. And if there's anything to take away that I really want to emphasize, is that this philosophy is doing in partnership with, not doing for. Cultural shifts can be complicated. They don't take place overnight. And it's not about individual efforts, but rather the collective, the sum of the parts coming together. In that light, we look to our community, to organizations, to community members, to partner, to collaborate, to innovate, to do differently, and knowing that we're all helping to shape in our own way the future of our community for the benefit of us all. Klal and Rabbi Appel not only gets this philosophy, this spirit, this mantra of working, but actually embodies it, not only in her approach, but in Klal's approach as a team and as an organization. And I'm gonna just stop my screen share so that I can formally introduce Rabbi Appel, who is the Director of Innovation Training and Curriculum at Klal. She creates welcoming and diverse Jewish spaces for exploration and empowerment. She's passionate about creating Jewish community that meets the challenges, the real challenges of the 21st century, in which Jewish identity is not a choice, but an obligation. She served for several years as the campus rabbi of Hillel at U of T, and previously served as assistant rabbi of Temple Beth Emmanuel Beth Shalom and Congregation Dorsey Emet. She knows our community well. She's a native of Boston and currently living in downtown Toronto. And Rabbi Appel, the floor is yours to share more about this journey that we're embarking on via Spark Montreal. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Carly. And I just want to say what a pleasure it is to imagine you all in Montreal, a place I love so much. And you know, what a personal pleasure it is to be able to do this work in a place that I've called home. So I'm really excited about doing this in Montreal, and to be able to not only bring, you know, the work that I've been doing the last little while with Claude, but also to bring it to a place that I have a sense, and I haven't lived in Montreal for 6 years, so there's much that you will need to teach me about what's been happening, but just to be able to have an even deeper sense of some of the dynamics, some of the feelings, some of the attitudes and culture of Montreal, and bringing that to this work. So here we go. Full screen. Here we go. Okay. So I'm in my new office. I'm in an actual office, not in my house. So there's folks in the hallway removing the garbage, which is kind of delightful to be with other humans. So Spark Montreal. This is, I want to start actually by telling you a story, which is perhaps a story that is familiar, which is the story of Yitro. So in Exodus, you have Moshe. He's just had the revelation at Sinai. He's taken the Jewish people out of slavery in Egypt, and they've witnessed the voice of God. And then Moshe's father-in-law comes and says, like, hey, what's going on? So again, this is going to be a story about thinking you're serving your people well, and then realizing you're really not, and you need to pivot in order to provide them with what they really need. So Yitro comes, brings Moshe's wife and sons to join him after Sinai, after the revelation of Sinai, and is just awed by hearing about how God redeemed the Israelites from Egypt. And, it's this amazing thing. And the next day, Yitro comes by and sees Moshe sitting and judging disputes among the people. All day long, they stand around him, waiting for their turn. And Yitro basically says, what are you doing? This isn't right. They have to wait all day. You're exhausted. And Moshe says, no, but they come to see me because I'm Moshe and I can talk to God. And Yitro basically says, no, they don't come to see you because you're Moshe. They come to see you because they need objective judgment. And this is a big realization. Moshe didn't totally understand what the people's needs were. If Moshe had asked the Israelites, why do you come to me for rulings? They probably wouldn't have said, I come because you're Moshe. They probably would have said, I come because I need someone wise to decide between me and my neighbor. In other words, the job they needed done was judgment by a wise person, not judgment by Moshe. And so Yitro came and, sort of took an outside look, took a step back and observed really closely and asked good questions. And he was the one that realized Moshe was not really serving the people's needs, even though Moshe thought he was. And we should all be so wise as Moshe, right? But Moshe thought for sure that this is what they need. And Yitro said, is it really though? Yitro, having seen their needs really clearly, suggests a major change. And that's what ends up setting up the layers of a judicial system so everyone could get what they needed. And that was an objective and wise judgment. And then the people were served well. So why do I tell this story? In the Jewish community, we often think we're serving our people well, and sometimes we are, right? But if membership holds steady or increases, if we have a certain number of people at our events, we consider ourselves successful. But we need to ask, are we serving our people the best that we can? Not just some people, but everyone. And not just the people, for example, who are able to wait around all day and night for Moshe, right? Is there something we don't totally understand about what our people need from us that we could understand better by observing them, by talking to them, and by better appreciating their needs? So that is what Spark Montreal is about. And we do this work in a variety of different settings. This is actually very exciting. This is the first time in which the teams that will be part of a Spark citywide unit all have the same group in mind when you are doing your design process, which is interfaith couples and families and children of interfaith couples and families. And so, this is what we're trying to do. This is the big picture. And it's about leadership. It's about how do we operate in our communities? It's about how do we serve our people? And it's not about what's next on the calendar. So let's talk for a minute about leadership. And this is really, if I leave you with anything, I want to leave you with this story of Moshe and his shift, and with this idea of what I call the lone genius versus the chief listener sort of way of approaching leadership. So on the left, we've got the lone genius. Somebody tell me what you see in that picture. Like, read me the picture. Who is this person? What's he doing? What do you got? Alyssa, what do you have? What do you see? I just call on people. I don't even wait.
Someone lost in their thoughts, all alone in the woods.
All alone, away from the action, just like going off on a little thought journey. Anyone else? What do you see in that lone genius picture? There's no like right answer. We're doing a collective interpretation. Eric, what do you see?
Somebody who's deep in thought, somebody who's contemplative.
Sure. Awesome. And then what do we see in the chief listener picture? Like, what's going on there? Sivan, what do you see in that picture?
They are having coffee.
Yeah, they're having coffee. Is it in the woods?
Like the first thing. No, they're engaged in conversation. And so, and out of conversation comes, just sort of like it has a momentum of its own.
Yeah. And they're in a place that just like regular people go, right? They're in a third space. Like they're not in the institution. They're not in the home. They're just like in a place people go, right? This is part of their life. It's not a special trip out into the woods. I mean, I guess you could live in the woods, fine, but most of us don't. Okay, so and are they staring up at the sky? No, they're looking at each other, right? So in a place, she's looking at him, she's listening to him. They're in a place that is a shared, common space, and they're chatting over coffee. Okay, so this lone genius, a lot of us are expected to be the lone genius. This may sound familiar to you, like whether we like it or not. Like, I'm not over here in the woods, but other people may have hired me to do that. So, for the lone genius model, my job is to go and think about a problem and come up with a solution. And great, you're here. Like, you're going to solve our young adult problem. You're going to solve the membership issue. Just like go and figure out the solution, tell us it, and then we'll talk about it at the next board meeting. The lone genius might be hired based on their ability to think of ideas. That person may base their ideas on their own needs, a sort of survey of one, right? We extrapolate from ourselves, which sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. Like, if I'm like, oh, everybody wants, an 8-week course in medieval mysticism, like, probably that's not true. That's just me. That is not widespread. But we sometimes make the mistake of extrapolating our own needs and assuming that's what everyone else needs. And then there's sort of this way of, we tried it didn't work, so we moved on. We got to come up with a new idea, right? We cancel. We don't do it again if it didn't work. So let's talk about the chief listener model, which is really the model of leadership that we're embodying in Spark Montreal and in this sort of process. So this person's job is to go and listen to users' experiences. I'm going to use the word user, replace that with community member, congregant, constituent, client, right? We all do different kinds of work. These are the people who come and use what you're offering. They come and they, accept your offering of programming, of space, of pastoral care, any of those things, right? So we're going to use user. It sounds a little businessy, but it kind of covers all of the different people you might be using and you might be working with. So the person's job is to go and listen. And they're hired based on their ability to ask good questions. And they base their ideas on the actual needs of users in their constituent group that they're creating offerings for. And those aren't like assumed needs. They're things we actually heard that I asked, they told me, and now I'm going to try to create something. And then also, like, we might launch something that was based on the needs we heard, and maybe we don't just throw it away if it doesn't work. Maybe we ask for more and more feedback, and then we think, oh, you know what, this can actually become something. Let's improve it more and more. Or we might think, okay, that was the wrong way, let's try again. But we're not just going to scrap it if only 8 people come and we wanted 15, right? We're doing something a little different. This is just the same thing that I had said before. Okay, So I want to tell you about user-centered design, because that's some words that you've heard already, and it's the methodology that we're using in Spark Montreal. Okay, so this might sound familiar. The usual way, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only person in a Jewish institution who's experienced this. But the usual way maybe is like the framing is, what do we want to create? Or maybe it's like, we need something in December. Or like, what's the Hanukkah party going to be? It's often like filling a calendar, right? But okay, what do we want to create? What event do we want to make? And then we brainstorm, and maybe we've got a committee, maybe we've got staff members, and we sort of just, someone comes up with an idea, and if it's all right, we kind of go with the first all right idea, and then we put it on the calendar, and we make it happen. If enough people come, we'll do it again the same way. If they don't, we'll cancel it and we'll do something else. So we're trying to shift away from that, because what was missing from that was the actual people, right? The actual users that you want to, offer something to. They're not actually in that equation at all. So here's the user-centered way. We're going to frame, instead of frame like which month of the calendar are we filling, we're going to say, what's our inquiry? What's the challenge we're facing? What's the challenge our users are facing that we want to actually address? And then we want to go through a period that I'm calling empathizing. This is interviewing, this is talking to them. And this is the step we always skip. It takes time. It seems unnecessary because we feel like, well, we know our people. I mean, come on. But sometimes we don't. And sometimes we're still doing that, survey of one, and we don't realize it. So it's really taking the time and talking one-on-one to a bunch of your people so they can teach you what they need. And then brainstorming, and it's not just brainstorming the first idea that comes to mind and then being, oh, let's put it on the calendar. It's like, really give yourself the freedom to think of as many ideas as you can, and then pick the best one. And then pick the one that feels like it's the most doable or the most interesting to you or the most aligned with your mission, whatever it is. But give yourself permission to dream. And then you're going to prototype it. You're going to try it out. You're going to pilot it, and you're going to iterate. You're going to ask for feedback. You're going to tweak. You're going to improve. So there's some extra steps in here, but what it means is that you are actually digging in, and what you create in the end is so much more centered on your people, and it's so much more relevant to them and meaningful to them. And they will say, oh, I've wanted something like this. And you're like, of course you did, because you told me you did. And then I tried to, take what you said and the 20 other people I talked to, and I tried to make something that was, aligned with what you're looking for. But again, you're not a waiter at a restaurant. You're not just saying, okay, you want elephants at Shabbat dinner, and you want a trip to the Caribbean. We're not just sort of taking order. We're trying to draw out, what are the themes we're hearing? What are common needs we're hearing, and how might our institution serve those needs within our capacity, within our superpowers, right? Our staffing, our skills, and within our mission. So just a little bit more on each step we're framing. These are often the tricky challenges that we keep on running up against, and we haven't solved yet. It probably means we don't have enough information. And so for Spark Montreal, a lot of us are asking, how do we serve interfaith couples and families? How do we help people to feel like they are welcome? How do we even get to know what they need, right? So we've already selected from hearing from the community and from sort of where people are experiencing things. We've already selected, Spark Montreal wants to work on better serving interfaith couples and families. Then we're going to empathize with our users. This is often called user discovery, but we're going to interview them. We're going to find the themes of what they're saying. We're going to draw out the needs they're expressing to us. We're going to brainstorm. And we're going to try something out. We're going to make a quick and dirty version. I don't know if you've ever worked on something for 6 months, we're going to do a gala, and get real deep into the planning, and then nobody wants to come. Actually, we forgot the step where we figure out, did anybody want to come to this? Is this serving anybody's actual needs? We might get lost in the logistics. So before we get lost in the logistics, before we plan for 6 months, let's plan for a week, throw something out there and see how people engage with it. It could just be a mock-up of a poster for something. It could be like a test run of a family program, right? But we just want to get something out there so we can continue to grow it and evolve it according to the feedback that we're hearing. And then again, we're going to grow it, we're going to change it, we're going to integrate what people are telling us. So the user-centered design cycle, that's what we're using. Here's an easy way of saying it: finding out what your people need. First, figure out what you want to solve. Second, listen. Third, brainstorm. 4, pilot. And then 5, try again. That's the user-centered design cycle. All right, so what is Spark Montreal? As we heard from Carly, we have some really good data on interfaith couples and families in Montreal. And I'm always so excited to work with communities that have already done serious data collection, because it means that we're rooting our understanding and we're rooting our one-on-one conversations in sociological data that goes sort of community wide. So we have like the secret collective data, and what we're doing is we're filling in individual data points, and we're doing it for the people we actually serve. So, most of the institutions here don't serve the entirety of the Montreal Jewish community. You serve a particular segment or a particular couple of segments. So 26% of married Jews in Montreal have a non-Jewish spouse. So a quarter of the Jews in Montreal who are married, right? These are folks who fall into this. That's a huge number. So what a wonderful, huge number of people that we would love to make sure feel they have a place in Jewish community and have an outlet for their Jewish desires and dreams, and have a way to raise Jewish children, all of these different things, right? It's a large number. And as Carly said, many people feel unwelcome in the Jewish community for various reasons, but there are really high levels of interest. So that is really good news. Okay, so Spark Montreal is a 6-month training fellowship. We have 7 institutional teams that will be able to participate, and we'll tell you about the application process in a couple minutes. Teams are comprised of 4 to 6 members, and that could be mixed staff and lay leaders. So I would probably recommend that your team leader be a staff member, because the team leader puts in a little extra time to set the meeting times and facilitate your team meetings. You're going to be learning and applying the user-centered design process that I just went over to better serve interfaith couples and families. It's going to consist of 3 3-hour workshops throughout our time together. The kickoff is on January 27th from 9:30 to 12:30, and you'll have kind of every other week team meetings to keep yourself moving along. We'll have a couple of virtual workshops in between our in-person ones. And you'll have some weekly assignments, some things to read, some things to listen to inspire you, to give you more information about the steps as we go through them together over the course of the 6 months. And then I'm available for coaching for team leaders, for everyone. So as you go through this process, I'm there to answer your questions. I'm there to think through with you. I'm there to help you with your, what are your interview questions going to be, all that stuff. I'm here for you. So it's about 2 to 4 hours a week, depending on the week, but you're going to be doing interviews with people. You're going to be, doing some reading, doing some listening, and meeting with your team. And at the end, there's an opportunity to apply for micro grants that are supplied from Federation. And the fellowship is free. So, this is this amazing opportunity that we hope you'll take advantage of. And thanks to Federation CJA in partnership with the Passport to Jewish Life funders. So that's the basic structure of Spark Montreal. The goals are really listening, right? Listening to your people, learn how to do that, be able to care for them, serve them better, and especially focusing on your interfaith couples and families. As a team, to build your skills in empathy interviewing and user-centered design, and to create new ways of intentionally meeting the needs of those interfaith couples and families. I think the intentionality is what I want to highlight, right? That I'm sure that most of the people on here, you have interfaith couples and families, you have good relationships with them. And I think what we're talking about is how can we be intentional about the big picture here? How can we be intentional about the way we serve folks? How can we get to know them in their specificity? Spark Montreal is divided into 4 sections. Our first unit is learning. We're going to look at the sociological context. We're going to look at best practices in the field, kind of looking around us. What's going on? What do we see? What are people doing? The second unit is researching. This is where we're doing our interviews. We're going to talk to 20, 30 folks in our community, and we're going to really let them teach us. Then we're going to design likely to succeed innovations that will help serve folks. And then finally, we're going to roll out our pilots, our prototypes in the summer and early fall. Just what are the expectations for participation? So again, teams of 4 to 6 members. You need to know who's going to be your team leader, because they have just a little more responsibility for keeping things moving along. It does not have to be the executive director or it doesn't have to be the senior staff member of your institution, but it does have to be somebody who's like really psyched to gather the team together, to keep things moving, and just to, be the point person. Everyone should be excited to experiment, to innovate, and potentially to fail forward, right? We're really, every failure is a learning moment in this, and it actually really is. It gives us information. This didn't work. Oh, okay, now we know something. People were voting with their feet. We know something more, right? We're gaining our insight. We want to be able to attend all of our in-person and our monthly online workshops, as well as the team meetings. And finally, you got to be a person who likes to talk to people. So, you're going to be interviewing people, you're going to be talking to people. Most of you do that anyway. It's part of what you do, it's talking to your people. But, people who don't really like to talk to people, maybe not the best person for your team. And then finally, that we expect you to create something and to put it out there in the late spring through the fall. Okay. I know none of you on here are super, super busy and have no time, right? All of us are swamped, especially as, we're moving into what does Jewish community look like now, God willing, as we exit the pandemic, God willing, right? Like, so we got a lot on our plates. And the biggest thing I actually want to tell you is with this, you're going to measure twice and cut once. In other words, what I have seen very clearly is, yes, we're going to spend more time on these interviews than you usually would when you're planning a Hanukkah party, right? We're going to spend more time, but we're going to spend more time at the beginning so that we don't waste any time creating things no one wants. We're not going to waste any time creating things that don't actually serve our people well. So what we invest at the beginning, we save on the end. So measure twice, cut once is really how this ends up playing out. You're going to gain this training. You're going to gain a structured program to work through the steps. You're going to gain tools to build a culture of experimentation and innovation in your institution. You'll get coaching and just being in a cohort, of like-minded people. And you'll have the opportunity to apply for seed funding to bring your team's design to life. I just want to share a little bit of what people have experienced in the past with Spark. These are the biggest things they learned: were a skill set, a mindset for driving change, alignment with constituents, feeling like I really get it. I really know what's going on with my people, a re-inspiration of leadership and confidence that, the folks who have been in Spark before feel like, oh, I actually feel like I can do this. I feel like I can assess what is needed. I feel like, I have more confidence. And also just, I feel I'm more excited. I'm more excited about being a leader in the Jewish community. And because these teams are able to be lay leaders and staff, there's really a deepening of partnership between professionals and lay leaders. And this has also built a foundation for cross-communal work, as people continue these conversations with each other. What does the landscape look like together? Just some stats, people overall feel like much more confident to be able to teach people how to do this, to assess the needs, to serve the needs of their people, and to create an innovation in their institution. Here's just some nice things people have said. I'm not going to read any of them out loud, but people really have experienced a mindset shift. And I come to this having done this at U of T. So, we were in a pilot cohort of Hillel's using user-centered design, and we did a very intensive change process over the 4 years I was at U of T, and everything changed. So, I didn't read this in a book. I did it on the ground, and I can tell you, first of all, I can't unsee this. I will never do Jewish community the same. I will never see it the same. I will never unsee what this step of talking with your people does. But also I can add my own testimonial, of just, we started at Hillel U of T with sort of, a space that looked kind of like a dentist's office, just lots of cubicles. There's no room for students. And on the other end, we've got a lounge. There's, my office became a living room. Like we changed just not only the physical space, but the way we do everything. And the impact was so profound. And so many of the folks that I now coach and teach in this same methodology have experienced that profound change. So I just want to say, as someone who has undergone this and and been a Jewish leader trying to do this work, it's pretty amazing. Klal, New York-based Jewish think tank, and we work with folks all over the Jewish world, thinking about what is the Jewish future, what does leadership look like, and how do we build a strong and vibrant Jewish community into the 21st century. You know me now. You'll meet Rabbi Ilan Babchuk, who's the Director of Innovation, as well as Shelley Adderman, who is the Director of Rabbinic Programs, and she is our logistics and support whiz. And I'll pass it back over, I think, to Carly about applications and how the applications work.
Thank you, Rabbi Appel. I'm still processing so many things that you just said, and I'll also echo, as someone who's gone through similar training, it shifts how you see the world. It shifts how you work and partner with community, and couldn't be more excited to bring Spark Fellowship, which is one of the signature innovation programs of CLAL, for the first time to our own backyard here in Montreal. And we're the first in Canada to lead out on something quite like this, which is super exciting. So if you want to learn more, if you want to apply, if you're curious, applications are due Thursday, January 6th. There are two parts of the application. One needs to be completed by the team leader and the other by team members. All teammates must turn in their applications no later than Thursday, January 6th. You're probably wondering, how do I get access to the application? That will be sent to you later today in an email. The application is creative in the sense that it will ask you to dig deep. You will learn about the San Francisco Opera. I'm not going to say more than that as a model. Some questions are one word. We try to keep it simple and as accessible as possible, and others will ask a short paragraph just to capture thoughts, so that it walks you through the process and asks some critical thinking questions, which this experience ultimately will, when all is said and done. If you have any questions or need help thinking through your team, really whatever comes, we are here as your thought partners. We're here as soundboards, and we're here to help lift you up if this is something that you would like to be a part of, or you're even thinking of submitting an application for. Applications open today. And that's really all that I had to share for the moment about the application process. We try to keep it as simple as possible, and following other applications that Spark Fellowship has done in the Rochester community and in others that have benefited from the wisdom and experience that is Spark. We're actually doing pretty amazing on time, I have to say, with exactly 10 minutes to go, and opening the floor for any questions, thoughts, with the space that we have. Both myself and Rabbi Appel and anyone on our team is open to sharing more or answering any burning questions that you might have. We just went through a lot of information between a report and a study and a little bit of design thinking and user-centered approaches and what this all means. So I'm sure there's, oh, I think I see a hand. Sivan, was that a hand?
Hi, yeah, it's actually something that we talked about when we had a meeting about this last week, which is, and I'm not sure if you mentioned it today, but you said there's the possibility of two organizations partnering to create a team. So I wanted to ask about that again, because it seems great, and thank you so much for this introduction for all of us. I am just wondering, just about our staff capacity or our team capacity to do this for 6 months. So yeah, I wanted to ask you to speak about what it would look like for more than one organization to form a team together when the mandates or audiences or may not align totally. Yeah, that's my question.
Well,
Rabbi Appel.
yeah, I would say that first of all, you are welcome to apply with a team that spans multiple institutions, but it has to be because you want to create something together. right? So your outcome will be a shared partnership. So it's not just, you're not just like one of you is interviewing your people, the others, and then you're just gonna like do different things. So if you have a partner in the community that you feel like, oh, we've been meaning to do something together, or we already partner on this thing, and this could be another chance to really develop our partnership, then I would say that sounds great. So, if you have two institutions that, really would love to work together, so the outcome is you build something together, you launch something together, and you would want to have, quite overlapping constituent groups, so that maybe there's an institution that really shares a lot of the same audience as you in terms of who you're serving. So that could be a good partner if you're thinking to yourself, we only have 2 or 3 staff members. We're a bit of a smaller institution. I'm not sure if we can do this, but we would love to be able to.
Great question. Thank you, Sivan. Opening the floor to anyone else. There's a question, a
One more
thought.
thing that I wanted to address too is, interfaith couples and families engagement is going to look really different depending on who your institution is. So just to be clear, like, we have no agenda for you. We have no agenda for your ritual policies, or right? Like, we really, really don't. This is a container for you to learn this methodology and apply it to your own setting. And the outcome will be what it is for you. And that will have to do with who you are, what your approach to this is, what your capacity is, what you're coming in with. Some of you will have ritual restrictions or outlook, like, really, we are so neutral on the outcome as long as it is serving your people and as long as it is rooted in what you heard when you talked to them. So I just want to make sure that's clear. We're not pushing a particular approach to interfaith couples and families, except that it is to listen to them and not make it up, right? So that is the approach. But the approach is really the methodology I talked about, and not a particular content of exactly what that looks like. So we're not trying to make every institution in Montreal look exactly the same, because that would erase the beautiful diversity of the Jewish Montreal community. And I should also note that we have a couple of guest trainings from Tema Smith, who's the director of professional development at 18 Doors, which formerly known as interfaithfamily.com. So she'll be bringing some of that interfaith engagement specificity. I have plenty of experience in that, but this is her specific field. So we'll enjoy her guest teaching as well at a couple of those webinars, so that we can hear from someone who's developing policies, working with individual institutions to think through what are the things that might be sticking points, what are some of the specificity. So that's an additional expertise that you're going to be able to experience in this program as well.
We're relatively quiet, and I think I see some like a lot of reflections going on. Natana, you had a question?
No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to share with the group that the survey that Carly referred to earlier is something that we're happy, if you request, we're happy to share with you the findings. They're really insightful, and they are a tool to also help you plan and better understand what the community, the interfaith community, is saying. So that's available to you and or any of your colleagues that you feel it would be useful for.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, Rabbi Greenspan raised her hand.
I have a question. You mentioned that you want lay leaders to be that part of the requirement is having lay leaders invested in this, but you also mentioned that there were webinars that would take place during the day. So those of us who are professionals obviously can make that time during the day, but I don't imagine that it would be easy to get our lay leaders to be able to commit to daytime.
So we've made them during lunchtime. So they're from like 12 to 1:30. And so we're hoping that will work for the most number of lay leaders as possible. So we try to keep it kind of, scrunched into a reasonable lunchtime. That's a great point, though. And for your team meetings, you will have to figure out, schedule wise, what will work for folks, so that everybody can participate. Because to be honest, it's more important that your team members be able to attend your team meetings. They can, they'll miss the chance to ask questions in the online in the virtual workshop time. But for the virtual workshops, I would much rather that people, that you have your team meetings at a time that everyone can come to, and that they can watch a recording of the virtual workshop, because, that teamwork is really, that's the heart of it. That's the heart of the work. Yeah. Thank you, Rabbi Greenspan. Any other questions about the program, about user-centered design, or like if you've seen things run awry, or you've done this, for a lot of you, you may engage with this kind of community work already. If you've created a startup, you're part of a institution that does this a lot. I would say, I also came to this from a background in community organizing. So many of us may have had experiences doing this kind of work, doing one-on-ones, and what Spark Montreal can offer you is not only like a particular group that everyone is hoping to better serve, but also just a very clear methodology, a timeline, and a structure to hold that process. I know, coming from community organizing and pastoral care as a rabbi, I was already doing some of these things, and then when I learned more deeply the user-centered design model, I was like, oh, great, right? This is a methodology that actually brings in a bunch of things I already want to do, a bunch of things I already believe are important, but it gives me kind of more of a step-by-step. I feel like more organized. I feel like I can go through that process and I have a clear outcome. So that's another piece of it, that it's not like some of this is going to be totally foreign to you. It actually should be kind of familiar, right? But it's the middle steps that we skip over that we're going to really dig into.
It's 1 o'clock. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And on behalf of our team at Federation CJA, on behalf of CLAL, on behalf of the Spark Montreal team that's working hard behind the scenes to support this and to ensure that we move forward together, I thank you for being here. And we're going to provide contact information for any questions, discussions, conversations, feedback, you name it. So great to see everybody. Happy holidays, and hope to see all of you again very soon in the squares, or even better in person. Thank you. Bye, everyone.